Oliver Twist, despised by all, pitied by none. On a date long forgotten, in a poor town in England, a boy was born. In a workhouse, there was almost no stories to tell. For the first minute of Oliver's life were almost his last. His breaths came slowly until he finally sneezed and let out a long wail. This lets the poor workers know what they had another mouth to feed. As Oliver gave proof of the power of his lungs, a pale face lifted from the pillow. "Let me see my child before I die." The servant had been sitting by the fire. "You must not talk about dying yet," she said. "Bless her dear heart," said the nurse. She deposited Oliver in the woman's arms. The mother was pressed her pasty lips to Oliver's forehead, passed her hands over his face, then fell back onto the pillow and died. "It's all over," said Jim. You need him. You need not. You needn't send me if." The baby cried. "Just feel it grew." He paused and looked at them. "Where did she come from?" She was quite pretty." The nurse scooped the baby into her arms. She was brought her last night. She was found lying in the street. Her soul was roared through her feet, blooded, where she was walking to nobody. The nurse wrapped the baby in a blanket. She put him down to rest. She knew he'd be despised by all and by none. Just like all people of the workhouse were. When Oliver was about 10 months old, he was sent to another workhouse. This workhouse was run by a woman named Mrs. Main. Mrs. Main was in charge of 25 children. Do not be fooled into thinking Mrs. Main loved or even liked children. She took them because she was paid to do so. Part of her payment was to feed and clothe children. Being a greedy woman, she kept all the money for herself. Oliver and the others got used to going to bed with empty bellies. Word by come to Mrs. May. When an inspection was to take place, it was only these times children were bathed, scrubbed up, and given a full meal. When Oliver Twist was 9, the head of the workers, Mr. Bumble, paid a surprise visit to Mrs. Main. "Oliver Twist is 9 today," said said Mr. Bumble. We never figure out who his father or mother were. Mrs. Main raised her hand in astonishment. How does he have a name? How does he have a name at all? I named him, said Mr. Bumble. We named children in alphabetical order. The child before him was Womble. Then a T was due. So I named him Twist. Oliver is too old to stay here. It's time he moved back to the house he was born into. I've come to take him. I'll fetch him myself, said his man after a quick cleaning of his outer layer. Oliver was brought before Mr. Bumble. Make a bow to the man, Oliver, Mrs. Main said. Oliver quickly bowed his head. Will you come with me, Oliver? asked Mr. Bumble. For he answered. Oliver saw Mrs. Main shaking her fist as a warning to the young boy. Oliver was used to her threats. Will she be going with me? He asked. I'm afraid not, asked Mr. Bumble, although Oliver was not happy leaving Mrs. Main. He quickly pretended to be sad at the sight of her shaking fists. Mrs. Main showed him off with 1,000 embarrasses and a piece of bread and butter. She couldn't have Oliver appearing too hungry when he arrived at the workhouse. As the gates closed behind him, Oliver felt a sudden sadness in leaving behind the only friends he had ever known. Oliver was immediately brought before a council of 10 men at the workhouse. They decided that Oliver should start work the very next day. Oliver in the workhouse, life in the workhouse was hard. Meals were limited to once a day, with the rare exception of a holiday. Here and there, the boys sat, ate, and in a large stone hall, a copper stove stood at one end. The master could string the grill in it. There was never a need to wash bowls, as the boys licked them clean. Oliver and his friends suffered a slow starvation for 3 months. One day, a new boy came along. He wasn't used to hunger. His father had owned a small cook shop before he died and left the boy an orphan. The boy's eyes grew widely with hunger. If I don't get more food, I shall eat one of you. This frightened all the other boys. Oliver was picked to get more food for this boy. He took his bowl and pretended it at the stove. Please, sir, I want more. The cook was a fat, nasty man. He couldn't believe his ears. What did you say? Please, sir, repeated Oliver. I want some more. The cook crashed the ladle down on Oliver's head and called for Mr. Bumble. Bumble was horrified to learn that Oliver had asked for more food. It simply wasn't done. Bumble took Oliver before the council. He shall be hung, said one of the men. An immediate discussion took place. Oliver was ordered to confinement, and a note was hung on the gate outside. The next day, it said, offering £5 to anyone who will take Oliver Twist off the hands of the poor Oliver. He wasn't about to be shuffled off once more. Thank you.